Monster Hunter Rise has been out for about a week now, and this is a super awesome game for me because this game is packed full of lore. And in this video, we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the key subjects that we're going to explore moving forward for Monster Hunter lore. Hey everyone, Chrono Pinoy X here once again, back with another Monster Hunter video. So, I have to say this now, Monster Hunter Rise has been a super awesome game for me, and I'm really enjoying it thus far. I've always been one of those people who researches Monster Hunter lore, and I always go through every single bit of detail that I can find in the Monster Hunter series, just so I can understand some of the history, the characteristics of monsters, some of the equipment that we see in the game, so on and so forth. And Monster Hunter Rise, I have to say this now, offers a plethora of them. In comparison to previous titles, this is the game for me if I simply want to research Monster Hunter lore. Now before we get started, I might be going through some spoiler heavy content here, which means that if you haven't played Monster Hunter Rise as of right now, maybe you're still waiting for your copy, or you're still debating whether you want to play the game or not and you don't want to be spoiled for it, I highly recommend waiting to get your turn on playing the game and going through all the way to the ending of Monster Hunter Rise's story before moving forward in this video. So this is going to be your spoiler warning. Past this point, I can only assume that you're alright with Monster Hunter spoilers, or you've already played the game and you've gone through all the way to the ending of the story. So again, spoiler warning, past this point, once again, I can only assume you're okay with spoilers. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about Monster Hunter. Alright, so to give you a bit of an idea as to what kind of content you can expect from me as we go through this channel moving forward, there are 5 key subjects that I want to cover regarding Monster Hunter Rise, and guess what? They're all based on Monster Hunter lore. I know some of you like to see things like speedrunning, or you want to see things along the lines of, let's say, creating builds for your character in order to optimize them. Unfortunately, that's not my strong point in the Monster Hunter series. I do like seeing build videos, but I can't make them for myself. So at best, I will be covering Monster Hunter lore. Now, as we go through the 5 subjects, these are the most basic subjects you would see in any Monster Hunter game. The first one, the nature of a monster. In Monster Hunter Rise, there's a lot more in-depth for each monster because they did one key thing that they never did in previous titles. They gave you a narrative on each introduction of the monster. Now, each introduction for each monster gives you a better understanding on their nature. That way, you have an idea as to what you can expect from these creatures if you want to understand a bit of lore about them. Not only that, if you take a look at the hunter's info regarding all of these creatures, you will see a bit more in-depth characteristics on them in their descriptions in comparison to previous Monster Hunter titles. Finally, they took something from previous generation Monster Hunter games in that they gave you the materials and gave you a full in-depth description on them based on the anatomy of the monster. So you have an understanding as to what these materials do on the monster's anatomy. So one of the key things we're going to be covering here is monster lore. Now, of course, if we're talking materials, we also have to talk about the equipment within the Monster Hunter series. Every piece of equipment within Monster Hunter has a bit of flavor text in them in order to give you an understanding as to what these equipment do for your characters outside of their stats. I know a lot of people tend to ignore this because they want to focus on prioritizing their character's performance, and that's completely understandable. That is the reason why I myself will be the one covering all of these equipment lore to give you a better context on the story behind them and what they can do to your character outside of your character's performance in gameplay. So we're going to be talking about the nature of these equipment, both weaponry and armory. Next up, we're going to be talking about locale history. Now, locales in the Monster Hunter series, they don't really get explored that much unless you have a big chunky textbook that gives you the context as to what exactly formed these locales to begin with. For example, the Monster Hunter Official Complete Works. That gives you an extended information on the ancient forest, the Wildspire Waste, Coral Highlands, so on and so forth. In Monster Hunter Rise, you don't need these kinds of textbooks. There's actually a way for you to just explore the entire locale, and as you keep exploring it, it will start to give you hints on the history behind each locale. So we'll be exploring each history of Monster Hunter Rise's locales to get a better understanding on any events that have occurred within these locations. Alright, the next part is going to be spoiler heavy, and I already gave you a spoiler warning, so you can't blame me for giving this spoiler part to you. The next part that we're going to be covering here is the history behind the Rampage. Now, in the story of Monster Hunter Rise, we already know what caused the Rampage to begin with. The two elder dragons that we fight in this game, the Wind Serpent Ibushi and the Thunder Serpent Narwa. However, there's actually a bit of history behind these two elder dragons that ties the Rampage beyond the 50 years that Kamura Village has been attacked by these two elder dragons that are causing the Rampage. So we're actually going to be covering some history behind these elder dragons and why they caused the Rampage to begin with. So this is something that we're going to be exploring moving forward as well. And finally, we'll be exploring a very special ability that was explored in Monster Hunter Rise by Hinowa and Minato, known as Resonance. Now, the twin Wyverian sisters can resonate with one another, so if one of them is in danger or needs help, the other one can come into the rescue. That is a telepathic link between the sisters. However, in Monster Hunter Rise, they've also explored the possibility of certain Wyverians being able to resonate with elder dragons and possibly any other creatures. This was something that was done with Hinowa and Minato as well. Hinowa resonates with Ibushi and Minato resonates with Narwa. So this is something that we'll be exploring not just in the context of Monster Hunter Rise, but the entirety of the Monster Hunter series, because I do believe that resonance is possibly linked to the history of Monster Hunter and certain characters within certain generations of the entire series. So we'll be exploring the ability of resonance as a whole as one of our main subjects within Monster Hunter in terms of lore. Now, in the context of Monster Hunter, especially with regards to world building, each of these individual subjects that I've just mentioned, they will have layers of topics underneath them. This means that for one subject alone, we can have an entire encyclopedia worth of knowledge. Having said this, however, what makes Monster Hunter Rise super impressive for me is that much of the information that we need regarding all of these topics for each individual subject, they're already available in the game as of right now. In fact, this game provides so much information that for those of you who do speedrunning or you want to know the stats of a monster, they're already available in the game as well. If you want to know a monster's weakness, what kind of drop rate you're looking into for materials, so on and so forth, those are all available in the game as of right now, and of course, the narrative side of things are also expanded in the game. These are usually things that Capcom would not provide you in any Monster Hunter title. In fact, in Monster Hunter World, you'll get the basic details of all of the information regarding a monster's weakness, some of the drop rates, so on and so forth, but they never give you the full scope of it, like what kind of numbers are we looking into. This is something that they provided in Monster Hunter Rise. This means that if you're looking into the full details of a monster's weakness, you will have the numbers presented to you and what kind of percentage you can expect certain drop rates. In World, they never provide you with that. They only provided you with like star ratings, which didn't really tell you a lot regarding a weakness of a monster or the kind of drop rates you're looking into. So it showcases that Capcom really went above and beyond, providing you every kind of information that you would want, not just from a gameplay perspective, but from a narrative perspective as well, making Monster Hunter Rise a very impressive game overall, especially if you want information in order to optimize your gameplay and your experience. Now, to go ahead and finish off this video, first up, with regards to exploring lore within Monster Hunter Rise, we're not just going to be focusing on Rise solely here. If I deem it necessary, we are going to look into other Monster Hunter games as well, especially if they connect to Monster Hunter Rise in terms of lore and narrative. So we will be exploring other Monster Hunter games here as well. Second of all, Monster Hunter Rise is by no means perfect for me, but it is becoming one of my top 5 Monster Hunter games of all time here, especially considering the fact that this game has a lot of expanded content that we don't see with previous generation Monster Hunter titles. So this is definitely becoming one of my top 5 games as of right now. And with all of that being said, what do you think about Monster Hunter Rise as of right now in terms of the content that Capcom has provided, whether that be from a narrative perspective or a gameplay perspective? Let us know in the comments below your thoughts and opinions regarding Monster Hunter Rise in its entirety as of right now. And with all of that being said, if you enjoyed these videos, please consider hitting the like on the video itself and subscribing to the channel, as well as hitting that bell icon so you can go ahead and catch up on any future Monster Hunter content that I might be doing or any other games that I might be playing in future. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Onward and upward.